again. Nice to have you folks back here at Murphy's Welcome to My World. This is episode number 14. This should be a fun little one. If you happen to remember episode 13, I recently attended the NMRA National Model Railroad Convention in Portland, Oregon. There at the train show, the nice people of the Woodland Scenics company had a large booth, and in the booth they had a number of learning kits. In episode 13, I showed you how to use their road building learning kit. Here in episode 14, we're going to be talking about modeling water. And I must say that I've done some water effects on my layout that have come out at best ho hum. So I'm really looking forward to doing this learning kit. See if I can get a little bit better at the water, and hopefully you can too. So come along with us, let's have some fun. Let's go give it a try. Well, I've opened up the bag here and have the instructions out, and we're having a look at it. You might remember from episode 13 that we looked at the instructions for the road building kit, and they were pretty simple. These instructions look to be a little bit more complex, but not too bad. There's only 9 different things we have to do. Obviously the writing's smaller and the pictures are smaller, so I suspect there's going to be more to it than the roads were, because the roads were pretty darn simple. Well, let's see what else is in the bag. Looking in the bag, the first thing I found was a rather sizable pile of light paper. I'm not exactly sure what that's going to be used for, but obviously it's important. The next thing is a small roll of plaster cloth, which I have used before with limited success. So hopefully I'm going to be able to do a little better with these. The next item is a pile of gravel. Got to have some gravel for any water effects. Water's never all by itself. And they also gave us a rather substantial packet of green grass in particular. So obviously this is going to be more than just water, it's going to be a scene. They also gave us a set of colors, because you don't want things to be just blah. You have a handy applicator and a stick. Just like in episode 13 where we were making the roads, we ended up having the applicator and the stick. We also have, in the packet here, some realistic water. From my experience with these products, they're fairly expensive, so I suspect they lost money on this learning kit. Obviously they want us to get good at it, so we end up buying a lot more stuff from them. They also gave us some scenic glue, and also some water effect. Not really sure yet what water effect is. I think it would have to do with the waterfall. So as you can see, you get a whole bunch of stuff in this particular packet. So looks like it's going to be a fun project. Well, let's get started and see how it comes out. It wasn't until I actually read the directions, imagine that, I read the directions, that I realized I needed some kind of a substrate. I needed something to put this water effect onto. You can't put it onto a flat surface. So I went out to my workshop and I found some blue foam insulation that I have that's excess, and I made this little display stand. It took me about an hour and a half. Didn't take very long. And let me tell you a little bit about it. Here you can see the river coming along this way. It's going to be a little waterfall right here. A little pond right along here. And I figured, well, what the heck, it's going to be a nice little scene. Let's see what I have laying around that I can use on it. Well, I have this lovely little bridge that's left over from, well, I don't remember exactly, but nice little bridge. Got the train track going to be running along there. And then over here in this nice flat spot, I'm going to put this little cottage. It's going to be a nice riverside pond cottage. And then I think it's going to come out nice. Well, hopefully it'll depend on whether the water effect comes out. So let's get on to the water. Well, I have to say that I made a mistake. In building my display stand, I had inadvertently already done steps 1 and 2. I had said earlier that I didn't think it would work on a dead flat surface, but it certainly will. Made a lot of sense after I read the directions a couple more times. Start out with this stuff here. I didn't know what this is for until I read it very carefully. This is for making features in the middle of the river. It has kind of lumps and stuff. As you can see, you get wet And you also use the paper here. They call it newspaper. It feels about like newspaper. Imagine you could use actual real newspaper. You use it to roll up in the edges also, so the water doesn't run out. So I'll put a little bit more here. Get the other side. Okay, so we've got kind of a side for it there. Now I'll take some of this and use this to kind of make a certain amount of texture on the bottom. Now that we have the basic substrate in position, then we go to that plastic cloth that I had talked about earlier. You take and you just get it just a little bit wet. You don't want to soak it, you just want to get it a little bit wet. And then there is a rough side and a smooth side to this plaster cloth. And you want to make sure that the rough side is up, the smooth side is down. What we're doing here is we're sealing the riverbed, so when you put the water effect in it, it's a liquid. You don't want it to just run through the holes and run out. And you can see this stuff smooths out really nice. Trying to get all the holes to fill in there. On my little display stand, the one that I'm going to be putting the water effect on, I used Durham's water putty, which is kind of like a plaster stuff. And I use it on all my display stands and my layout. It gives you a nice consistent light brown color and it seals everything. I find that if you're in a hurry, you don't want to do this. You want to do something else if you just haven't got the time to play with it. Well, you get the idea here. Lay a couple additional layers to make sure that all of the holes are filled in. Then comes the hard part. Waiting until it's completely set up and dry. While I'm waiting for the plaster to dry on the other small test unit, I went ahead and I mixed up some of the pigment colors, and they were very specific, saying mix the pigment colors with water, about 1 teaspoon per container, and I found that the pigment actually was quite difficult to get mixed up. You'll see that it's kind of lumpy, and I worked quite hard at trying to get it to do its thing. It was very specific that the darker colors work for the deeper areas. Oh, actually that goes on quite nicely, look at that. So I'll put some of the dark color on here, maybe just a little bit more. And it's kind of more of a wash than a paint. It's not so much of a paint. So I'll move up here and add a little bit to some of these deeper spots up in the upper part of the river. I'm going to be rather sparing with the black. And it was very specific to move from darkest to not so dark to lighter. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the kind of greenish color. Interestingly enough, the greenish one, actually, it was pretty good mixing up. So I'm going to add a little bit of green here and kind of mix it in. I want to feather it together so it's not a very distinct line. Generally speaking, in real life, the colors blend together. They don't individually stand out. And then I'm going to go to the brown, and what the heck, I'll just go ahead and do this one lower area, and then I'll do the rest of it. You don't have to watch me do it all. So I'll start adding some brown up in here. Let it kind of run together. That's all right. And I think actually I might use some black right here at the base of the waterfall. I'm going to add some black right there, just because I can. Well, you get the idea. When I get it all painted up, I'll show you. Moving right along, we're going to be adding talus, which is basically little rocks, and some green grass. Right along a river or a pond is always where you get the greenest of green grasses. Usually out in the wild, grasses aren't very green, they're multicolored. And I'm going to put this glue all around the edges here. I had kind of a little bit of a surprise when I opened up the glue that came with the project. I think that glue is going to be a little too hard, so what I ended up using, and what I usually use anyway, is just some Elmer's white household glue. Some people like it a little bit thinner. I like to use the full strength stuff because it just sticks better. Well, I'm going to continue putting the glue on here. I'll be back in just a moment. Now that I have a nice coat of glue along the edges here, I'm going to take and just spread a little bit of this talus along in here. If I get real excited, I'll even go back and put some more glue in the middle of the river in some of the shallow spots, so you'll be able to see some rocks in the bottom. Matter of fact, I think I'll do that. I'll do that right now. Let's just add a little bit in some of these shallows. I'd like some rocks, talus right in here, maybe a little bit in here. And then this looks like a good area here. That's a good area to get some rocks in there. That's what's nice about these projects, is you can change your mind. You can change anything you want. You can do just however you like to see it. So I'll put a little bit of rocks down there also. So putting the talus in here. And not a heck of a lot. I'm just putting enough in here to give it some texture, basically. And so I'm putting it around the edges. Well, you'll get the idea. I'll be back in just a moment. Alright, you'll see that I added the green grass along the edges. I actually put a little bit more talus in here and there to give it a little bit more texture. I'm not sure exactly if I need to add anything there, because that's where the waterfall effect's going to be. But I moved over here and I filled that in. I think it's starting to look interesting. I find I like to put lots of scenic material on any particular project. When you're done, all you have to do is shake off the excess and keep it for next time to use someplace else. The directions wanted me to add additional scenic cement on top of the talus, but I find most of the time this will do well enough for most of your projects. And here comes the hardest part. The hardest part is we have to be patient. We have to wait until the glue goes off. So obviously I'll have to go find something else to do for a while. While we're waiting for the glue to dry, the next step here is to make the waterfall. And the directions say get a piece of non-stick material, freezer paper, non-stick pan, something like that. Well, I have some wax paper here, which I would like to think it'll work anyway. And then what they want you to do is take a toothpick on the bottom side, kind of fan it out here. Hopefully that'll be fanny enough. What do you think? Now comes some more of the hard part. Waiting for it to dry. I let the glue dry overnight. I turned it upside down and tapped it off. And you'll see that the talus and the grass actually came out quite nice. From reading the directions, it also talks about putting some masking tape on the edges here so the water doesn't run out. I looked very carefully at the directions a number of times to see how deep you can make it, and there isn't any recommendation. So I'm going to go ahead and move along to the next aspect, and that's going to be pouring the water into place. And that looks like the easiest part of the whole deal. What they specifically say is don't let it get real close to the edge. You go ahead and you pour it into place here, but not all the way to the edge. They want you to use a toothpick to get it right all the way. Looks to be thin enough that it's going to be self-leveling. Well, you get the idea. I'll show you after I get it all done. The instructions we're talking about using a toothpick to get the water to move around, get it nice and clean on the edges here so you don't have a big bumpy ridge. I figure my pencil ought to work just about as good. As you can see, my pond is not filled up. It's a good thing that I have some of this Woodland Scenic water effect out in my train shed, so I'll be able to fill it up all the way. They were very specific in stating not to mess with it for at least 24 hours. So I'm going to let this sit for a while. We'll see how it comes out. I have to say that sometimes even the best of plans don't work out the way you think they should. Remember how I put the waterfall material on this wax paper? Well, I just flatly couldn't get it off there. So that's what I think about that. Fortunately, I have some more of this water effect that I already have on hand. Same stuff, big bottle. So what I'm going to try this time, instead of trying to put it on a piece of wax paper or something, I'm going to actually apply it directly onto the waterfall, and let's see what it looks like. Worst comes to worst is, well, I might have to do it over. And since I have a whole big bottle of this stuff, I'm going to put it on liberally. And I'm feathering it into the water above. Of course, you see I'm going up with the strokes right now. When I'm done, I'm going to do it all down to get it nice and consistent. I want to fill that in a little bit there. Making sure that I get it all the way to the top. And then I'm going to work it down. While I'm working this down, let me tell you a little bit about the water effect. I found that the water effect actually shrank quite a bit. And up here in the river part, I ended up putting 2 coats on. Down here on the lake, I put 3. Now while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and put just a little bit of water flow motion here on the river. Not a lot up here, just a little bit to give it some texture. Okay. So making it kind of watery looking, hopefully. Looking at this here. I'm going to feather this out some more, because of course the water is going to be moving around. So what do you think? Does that look all right? Certainly one way to find out, and that's wait and see. I'm going to give it a good full 24 hours before I touch it. As you can see, I've been busy. I added some scenic effects on here just to make it look a little bit more like real life. Basically, I got bored waiting for the water to go clear. And you can see that the river comes down here. It actually came out really nice. If you look real carefully, you can see the striations moving along there for the water moving. I think next time I would make this lip a little bit less distinct. I would have softened it more for next time. And the water coming down. Down here at the bottom of the waterfall, it never did get very clear, which actually I think I like. Obviously the water going over. I left a little color at the top here. Then it would hit at the bottom and make some frothy water, a little bit of white water. If you look carefully, you can see the striations coming out that I put on with the water coming into the pond. Of course, you got to have a couple of boaters if you're going to have a pond. Came out really nice. You can see I have the cottage in place. The next step is to put the track and the bridge in place. So I'll be doing that, and then I'll give you a little look when that's done. you have it. This was episode number 14, a fun little episode where we learned how to make water effects. These learning kits from the nice folks at the Woodland Scenic Company certainly come in handy. I hope you guys had as much fun as I did putting this together. I'd like you guys to come back and join me again here at Murphy's Welcome to My World. Have fun with your trains. Bye-bye, guys.